Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India tells the UN Security Council it stands in solidarity with Israel against terrorism, but warns that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is equally alarming. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says Hamas's attacks on the Israelis did not happen in a vacuum. An Israeli diplomat responds by demanding Guterres' resignation. Nearly 300,000 people flee to safety as cyclonic storm Hamoon hits the southeastern coast of Bangladesh. At least 2 reported dead. And India set to overtake Japan as the 3rd largest economy by 2030, says an S&P Global Market Intelligence report. First up, the latest on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israel will amend its national budget to meet expenses arising from the war against the Hamas. The country has said that the conflict is costing it $246 million directly on a daily basis. Israel still does not have an assessment of the indirect costs of the war on the economy, partly paralyzed by the mass mobilization of military reservists and rocket attacks from Gaza. Earlier, the S&P Global downgraded Israel's outlook to negative from stable. Meanwhile, Israel continues to strike the Hamas's targets in Gaza.
Fuel will not enter the Gaza Strip. Hamas used the petrol for its military infrastructure. Fuel that Hamas stole from UNRWA should be taken back from Hamas and given it to the hospitals.
Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, Israel has intensified its bombing of southern Gaza overnight. Now, this even as world leaders call for a halt to fighting to allow aid into the besieged enclave. Fill us in on the latest developments.
Hello there, Ramesh. Well, look, yes, Israel is continuing its bombardment of the Gaza Strip ahead of what it's saying is the next phase of this war. It says it wants to clear out as many Hamas operatives from the Gaza Strip, both in the north and the south, as possible ahead of this widely anticipated military incursion by the Israeli military, which could happen at any moment now. Now, look, just a few moments ago, the IDF did come out to say that it has killed one of Hamas's top commanders. He's known as Taysir Mubasher, a man considered close to the commander of Hamas's military wing. Now, also, they're not just strikes down in the south, but also in the north. The Israeli Defense Forces says it has taken out a position of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Well, it's also made a rare admission to strikes in Syria overnight. We do understand, according to Syrian state media, that 8 Syrian military personnel were killed and a number of others wounded. Now, also in this region, very, very early this morning, the Israeli military conducted a drone strike in the West Bank city of Jenin, killing at least 4 Palestinians, wounding a number of others, with the IDF saying that they were launching grenades and throwing rocks as a raid happened there in the West Bank city. So look, it's not just in the south, but right across the region. Tensions are really ramping up, Ramesh.
Any word yet on the fate of the other hostages still in Hamas's captivity?
Well, look, we do know that there are around 222 people still being held captive in the Gaza Strip. No word on their whereabouts. But according to these two elderly women who were released just a couple of nights ago, many hostages are being held in these underground tunnels that are used by Hamas to smuggle fighters and weapons. Right now, we do understand that talks are underway to try and secure the release of more of these hostages, although Hamas says it will not release any military personnel. We do know that a number of soldiers are being held in the Gaza Strip by Hamas. Now, the IDF says that yesterday being Tuesday, that it dropped a number of leaflets in parts of the Gaza Strip appealing to residents and civilians there to give up information, if they have any, on these hostages that are being held in the Gaza Strip, saying that they would be rewarded with money. So look, still no word on where these people are and what kind of condition they are in. But this comes as pressure is really mounting on the Israeli military and Israeli top officials to get these people out before any kind of military incursion begins.
Sarah, thank you. Sarah Coates reporting there live from Tel Aviv. The chief of Lebanon's Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, met top leaders of the Palestinian terror groups, the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. The Hezbollah's Al-Manar TV said that they assessed what their alliance must do to achieve a real victory in Gaza. The meeting comes as Israel continues to station its tanks at its border with Lebanon. Israel's ambassador to the UN has called for the head of the world body to resign over his comments about the conflict in Gaza. In a tense meeting of the UN Security Council, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the Hamas's attacks on 7th October did not happen in a vacuum. In response, Israel said he was justifying terrorism. According to Gaza's Ministry of Health, more than 5,000 people have been killed in the enclave since the 7th of October. Some 1,400 people have been killed in Israel, with more than 200 hostages still being held inside Gaza. DD India's Sally Patterson reports from New York, where the United Nations is headquartered.
Addressing the United Nations Security Council, Secretary-General Antonio Guterres didn't mince his words. He said he had condemned unequivocally the, quote, horrifying and unprecedented acts of terror by Hamas in Israel. Nothing, he said, can justify the deliberate killing, injuring and kidnapping of civilians. He went on to say it is important to recognise the, quote, attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. He said the Palestinian people had been subjected to 56 years of occupation. Now, Israel's UN ambassador, Gilad Erdan, described Guterres' speech as shocking. And in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, he called on him to immediately resign. His comments, Erdan said, constitute a, quote, justification for terrorism and murder. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen was in New York as well for the Security Council debate, but he said he'd cancelled his meeting with Guterres following the speech.
Saturday, October 7, will go down in history as nothing less than a brutal massacre. Saturday, October 7, is a wake-up call for the entire free world, a wake-up call against extremism and terror.
Meanwhile, member states called for de-escalation, with the United Kingdom warning attacks by Hezbollah on Israel's northern border and rising tensions in the West Bank could signal the wider region could become engulfed by war. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was also in attendance, and he stressed there would be repercussions if the situation spiraled further. Now, concerns were also raised about the humanitarian crisis continuing to unfold in Gaza. Guterres said that while some supplies are now getting into the Strip, it is a drop of aid in an ocean of need.
Thankfully, some humanitarian relief is finally getting into Gaza, but it is a drop of aid in an ocean of need. In addition, our UN fuel supplies in Gaza will run out in a matter of days, and that would be another disaster. Without fuel, aid cannot be delivered, hospitals will not have power, and drinking water cannot be purified or even pumped.
UN fuel supplies will run out in a matter of days, he warned, calling that a disaster. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Now, India told the UN Security Council meeting that it has deep concerns over the Israel-Hamas war. It pledged ongoing support for the Palestinians. In the first open debate on the conflict, Council members called for an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian aid for the Palestinians. But no resolution has been reached, raising fears of further escalation. Indian diplomat R. Ravindra voiced distress over the worsening security situation and civilian casualties.
India is deeply concerned at the deteriorating security situation and large-scale loss of civilian lives in the ongoing conflict. Our Prime Minister was one of the first global leaders to have conveyed his condolences for the loss of lives and prayers for the innocent victims and their families. India has sent 38 tons of humanitarian goods, including medicines and equipment, to the people of Palestine. In these challenging times, India will continue to send humanitarian assistance to the people of Palestine.
And DD India's Amritpal Singh has more from Jerusalem. Take a look.
Even as the Israel-Hamas war intensifies and Israel intensifies its aerial bombings and threatens both a ground assault and assault through the sea route, the situation is escalating. But India at the UN has said that civilian death count and civilian casualties are a matter of serious concerns and peace talks should be resumed. At the UN Security Council open debate, many countries, especially the Arab countries, stressed for a humanitarian pause, for a ceasefire and resumption of peace talks and immediate cessation of all military campaign by Israel. It was also appealed that proportionality be maintained in the military activity that Israel is doing, because the civilian death count and the evolving humanitarian crisis poses a great risk. On the other hand, the World Bank says that if this conflict spirals, it could have devastating consequences for the Middle East economies or the West Asian economies, which is the hub of energy and our oil-producing countries. And the world cannot afford this, even as the Ukraine-Russia war rages on. The world just is in no position to have another war. So where is the war going? Israel is insistent that it will not stop until it decimates Hamas. Though it's not very clear what do they mean by decimating Hamas. If they completely eradicate Hamas, assuming that happens, what will they do later? Who will be the new political leadership in the Gaza Strip? These are the questions being asked here, but Israel says it's not time for these questions to be asked. Right now, their objective is to finish Hamas and see that the terrorism is wiped out. With cameraman SP Dubey, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Jerusalem.
Meanwhile, a war of words has erupted between the US and Iran at a UN Security Council meeting amid fears of a spillover of the Israel-Hamas war. There are also concerns that Lebanon's Hezbollah could join the conflict. Both the Hamas and Hezbollah are backed by Iran. Addressing the UN Security Council, U.S. Foreign Minister Antony Blinken said that Washington, D.C. does not seek a conflict with Iran, but he warned that it would act swiftly if Iran or its proxies attack U.S. personnel anywhere. The statement comes after rocket attacks on an Iraqi base housing U.S. troops.
Before this council, and let me say what we've consistently said to Iranian officials through other channels. The United States does not seek conflict with Iran. We do not want this war to widen. But if Iran or its proxies attack U.S. personnel anywhere, make no mistake, we will defend our people, we will defend our security swiftly and decisively.
For its part, Iran hit out at the U.S. for blaming Tehran for the Israel-Hamas war. It accused the U.S. of escalating the conflict by aiding Israel at the expense of the Palestinians.
Today, the U.S. Secretary of State once again attempted to wrongly place the blame on Iran. Iran categorically rejects these groundless allegations. Our commitment to the regional peace and stability remains unwavering. The U.S. has further exacerbated the conflict by overtly aligning itself with the aggressor at the expense of the innocent Palestinian population.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. China sacks 2 more ministers in the latest shake-up by President Xi Jinping. Hurricane Otis makes landfall near Acapulco in Mexico. And the Hunger Games set to open at a London theatre next year.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. On Tuesday, China sacked its finance minister and science and technology minister, along with its defense minister. China's defense minister, General Li Shangfu, who has been absent from public, was also dismissed as a state councillor. Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang, who was removed as the minister, was also stripped of his state councillor position.
In a sweeping cabinet reshuffle, China on Tuesday sacked 3 of its ministers without giving any reasons. The replacement for 2, including finance and science and technology, have been announced, while the defense minister's replacement is yet to be announced. The Chinese government removed finance minister Liu Kun and appointed Lan Fon in his place. Before Lan was appointed to the post, he headed the finance department of the party in late September. Another official announcement said the National People's Congress removed the Minister of Science and Technology, Wang Zhijiang, and appointed Yin Huzhen in his place. Wang served as the Deputy Minister of Science and Technology since July 2012 and became the Minister of Science and Technology in March 2018. China also removed Defense Minister General Li Shangfu without any reasons given. Li was not seen in public for almost 2 months. He was also removed as state councillor. Shangfu was the second leader to disappear this year. In July, China dramatically ousted Foreign Minister Qin Gang after a prolonged absence from public view. He was also stripped of his state councillor position. Wang Yi, who was the director of the Office of the Central Commission for Foreign Affairs, was appointed as foreign minister. The disappearance of Li and Qin have raised questions from diplomats about the abrupt changes in China's leadership at a time when the country's economic growth is sluggish and its relations with the United States have soured over a range of issues.
Moving on, Cyclone Hamoon has crossed Bangladesh's southeastern coast, Chattogram and Cox's Bazar at midnight. As per Bangladesh's weather department, the cyclonic storm moved northeastward and completed crossing the coast early morning this Wednesday. The cyclone has weakened into a land-deep depression near southeastern port city of Chattogram. According to the weather department, the deep depression is likely to move further inland and weaken gradually by giving precipitation. And Naval Singh Parmar joins us live from Dhaka. What can you tell us about the status of Cyclone Hamoon as we speak?
Actually, yesterday evening, 7 p.m., a cyclone struck at the coast between Chattogram and the Cox's Bazar in Chattogram division of Bangladesh. And approximately around at 1 a.m. in today's morning, the cyclone crossed the coastal area of Bangladesh. And after that, it went further into the dip in land area and converted into the land dip depression with heavy precipitation in the Chattogram division of Bangladesh. And due to the cyclonic rain and tidal surge, low-lying area of Chattogram and Cox's Bazar went underwater, and several trees uprooted in Chattogram, Cox's Bazar, mainly in Cox's Bazar areas, and many houses also damaged due to the untimely or with warning from the Met Department of the Bangladesh. So people are complaining about the late warning from the Met Department, and due to that, the people were unprepared to face the natural calamities. And it is there in media report that 2 people lost their lives in different 2 incidents in Cox's Bazar areas. And there are many public properties and the trees and the people's house got damaged due to the cyclone mainly in Cox's Bazar areas.
All right, we leave it at that. Naval Singh Parmar live from Dhaka. In some more weather-related news, Hurricane Otis, a Category 5 storm, has made landfall near Acapulco in Mexico. According to the U.S. National Hurricane Center, the hurricane, which was located about 5 miles south of Acapulco, packed maximum sustained winds of 165 miles per hour. Authorities have warned a catastrophic storm surge in parts of Guerrero and Oaxaca, with the possibility of flash floods and mudslides in the region. India has become an increasingly attractive location for multinationals across a wide range of industries. The US-based global ratings agency, the Standard & Poor's Global Market Intelligence, has said in its latest PMI issue. The S&P has said that India is likely to overtake Japan and Germany to become the world's 3rd largest economy by the year 2030, as its gross domestic product, or the GDP, is expected to touch $7.3 trillion. So there you have it, the graphics on your screens right now. And currently, India is the 5th largest economy in the world at $3.7 trillion worth of GDP in 2023-2024. India has replaced the UK as the 5th biggest economy in 2022. And after 2 years of rapid economic growth in 2021 and 2022, the Indian economy has continued to show sustained strong growth during the 2023 calendar year. In more news about India, Indian Science and Technology Minister Jitendra Singh held a mid-campaign progress review on Phase 3 of a cleanliness campaign at a meeting held in New Delhi on Wednesday. Minister Singh spoke about recycling on wheels and its benefits, which aligns perfectly with the objective of fostering a cleaner India.
We created a kind of a vehicle, a large vehicle of the size of a bus, which has been named recycling on wheels. So it recycles it within a short span of time and brings out a raw material which can be then used in the paper industry, even the plastic industry. So it disposes of, at the same time creates wealth.
Minister Singh also said that in the future, an artificial intelligence-driven module can be introduced which can help segregate different types of waste.
The trinity of AI plus robo plus drone. So now, like we have this recycling on wheels. We put everything that gets recycled. Now we can have an artificial intelligence-driven module which will segregate the solid waste and the liquid waste. Then we have the robo, which would carry this and load it on the drone, the respective drones. One for the liquid waste, other for the solid. And then the drone would automatically fly and carry it to the respective place.
Now take a look at some other stories making news in India. Delhi's air quality remained poor for the third consecutive day on Wednesday. The Air Quality Index, or AQI, in the Indian capital was recorded at 238 at 10 a.m. local time, which falls in the poor category. A massive fire broke out at a chemical factory in the Aravalli district of Gujarat in the early hours of Wednesday local time. More than 60 tankers filled with chemicals were gutted by the fire. 10 fire tenders were rushed to the spot to douse the flames. The cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained. The concert hall of the world-renowned Meenakshi Amman temple in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu resonated with the sound of music as 108 women played the veena on the occasion of Vijayadashmi. Hundreds of devotees and tourists watched in delight as they played in unison as the soothing Carnatic music reverberated through the temple corridors. In some more news, the Hunger Games is set to open at a London theatre next year in the first live stage adaptation of Suzanne Collins's novels and the hugely successful film franchise. Irish playwright, screenwriter and director Conor McPherson has adapted the first book in Collins's young adult dystopian trilogy and the first film from the Lionsgate movie franchise. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Google's parent company Alphabet's cloud business crawls to its slowest in at least 11 quarters. Dozens of US states are suing Meta Platforms and its Instagram unit. And Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to hold talks with Biden.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says the Hamas's attacks on the Israelis did not happen in a vacuum. An Israeli diplomat responds by demanding Guterres' resignation. Nearly 300,000 people flee to safety as cyclonic storm Hamoon hits the southeastern coast of Bangladesh. At least 2 reported dead. And India is set to overtake Japan as the 3rd largest economy by 2030, says an S&P Global Market Intelligence report. Now, the Israel-Gaza conflict enters its 19th day on Wednesday. More than 7,000 people have been killed in the conflict so far. The UN has called for an immediate ceasefire to end ravage in the Gaza Strip. Hospitals started shutting down because of a fuel shortage. More in the next report.
Don't be scared. Your family is safe. Civil defense personnel told the father under rubble in Gaza while being rescued. This is just one. There are thousands of such stories of rescue and survival. These parents tied blue and white bracelets on the wrists of their children. This is their way of recognizing their children if something happens.
I have seen bodies ripped apart. If something happens and they are in pieces, this way I will recognize them from these bracelets. I will collect their parts.
Hundreds of such families have taken shelter in these refugee camps in Khan Yunis. Everyone has a story to tell. The United Nations says there is clear violations of international humanitarian law in the Gaza Strip.
The situation in the Middle East is growing more dire by the hour. The war in Gaza is raging and risks spiraling throughout the region. Divisions are splintering societies, tensions threaten to boil over. At a crucial moment like this, it is vital to be clear on principles, starting with the fundamental principle of respecting and protecting civilians.
The International Monetary Fund also raised concern about the loss of lives in the Israel-Gaza war and the destruction of economic activity. Israel has imposed a total seize on Gaza. Countries have engaged in diplomatic talks focused on movement of humanitarian aid to the enclave. Some consignment of trucks have reached, while many of them are stuck in Rafah, the main crossing in and out of Gaza that doesn't border with Israel. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
Nicole Priel joins us from Tel Aviv. Nicole is a venture capitalist. Nicole, welcome to DD India News Hour. It's day 19 of Israel's war on the Hamas. What can you tell us about the situation along the Israel-Gaza border?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here with you and good afternoon. Unfortunately, things seem to be continuously challenging for us here in Israel as well as in Gaza. Unfortunately, there's still 222 hostages in Gaza who we have not had contact with. So there's a lot of despair and grief, and not to mention the thousands of rockets that have been lobbed into Israel over the last 2 weeks. So the situation is still very challenging here.
Do you think the delay in Israel's ground assault on Gaza has more to do with the fate of the hostages, which you referred to, and the Western pressure on the Netanyahu government than anything else?
I think that Israel is going to act in its best interests, regardless of what any international body insists that it do. Israel did not want this war, but is going to respond in the best way possible. So I believe that the delay for the ground invasion is simply to prepare the troops, to prepare the groundwork, to ensure a minimal loss of life on both sides. And yes, to look out for the best interest of the hostages as well. But I have no doubt that Israel is preparing for a very, very meticulous yet lengthy ground invasion to obliterate Hamas and all of the terrorist infrastructure once and for all.
What did you make of UN Chief Antonio Guterres' address to the UN Security Council open debate and Israel's reaction to it? Guterres says the Hamas's attacks on the Israelis did not happen in a vacuum. An Israeli diplomat has called for his resignation now.
We, and I think I speak for most of the Israeli community, we have long ago lost all faith and trust in the UN to be a neutral arbiter in almost any global conflict. So they have, for years, ignored the atrocities, the human rights atrocities going on in Syria, in North Korea, in multiple other places, and have honed in on Israel as their main target. So I do not take what they say with any scent of truth or nobility.
Now, 19 days on, the U.S. has not been able to get the UN Security Council to pass a resolution on the Israel-Hamas war. Are you disappointed?
Disappointed, but not surprised. This is repeated UN-like behavior. Regardless of the conflict, they hold Israel accountable. Regardless of who instigated the conflict, they hold Israel accountable. However, they have no trouble putting onto a bench or awarding real terrorist regimes with stature in the UN. So I think that they lost their credibility a very long time ago. So I'm not surprised by the announcement yesterday.
And finally, Nicole, do you think Iran will become directly involved in the war if the Israeli attacks on Syria and the Hezbollah in Lebanon escalate?
My sincere hope is they do not. However, Iran seems to operate with one motive in mind, and that is the destruction of the tiny state of Israel with a population of 10 million people. So I surely hope that they do not get actively involved in this conflict. It would not spell out a very good near-term future for this region and for the entire world. I hope that they do stay out of it to the extent possible.
Nicole, thank you. Nicole Priel there joining us live from Tel Aviv. And staying with the Israel-Hamas war, calling for peace in Gaza, hundreds of Jordanians gathered outside the Al-Qaluti Mosque in Amman to show support for the people of Gaza on Tuesday. The protesters waved flags and chanted slogans. The World Health Organization called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to prevent food, medicines and fuel supplies from running out in Gaza. In Malaysia, the country's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim joined thousands of pro-Palestinian supporters in the capital Kuala Lumpur to condemn the Israeli strikes in Gaza. Malaysia has long been a vocal supporter of the Palestinian cause and called for a two-state solution between the Israelis and Palestinians. Malaysia does not have diplomatic relations with Israel. After wrapping up his visit to Israel and the West Bank, French President Emmanuel Macron reached Amman in Jordan on Tuesday. The French president has also proposed international coalition fighting the Islamic State terror group in Iraq and Syria to widen its scope to include the fight against the Palestinian militant group Hamas in Gaza during his visit to West Asia. Macron also met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. Earlier, France's Macron also met the Palestinian counterpart on Tuesday. During his meeting, Macron said that the Hamas attack is also a disaster for the Palestinians. Macron met Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah during his visit to the region.
Je veux aussi rappeler ici l'épreuve que vivent les otages à Gaza.
The terrorist attack of Hamas on October 7 has been a tragedy for the Israeli. It's also a disaster for the Palestinians.
In other news from the world of business, Google's parent company Alphabet's cloud business crawled to its slowest in at least 11 quarters, sending the company's stock down 5.7% after hours, even as sales at rival Microsoft cloud unit boomed. The drop in Google's share price, despite beating Wall Street estimates for profit and sales, shows how much investors want the company to deliver gains in artificial intelligence. Fears of a slowing global economy have prompted companies to curb spending on cloud-related services, including expensive AI tools, which has slowed revenue growth at Google's cloud unit to 22.5% in the third quarter, from 28% in the prior 3-month period. Dozens of US states are suing Meta Platforms and its Instagram unit, accusing them of fueling a youth mental health crisis by making their social media platforms addictive. 8 other US states and Washington, D.C. are filing similar lawsuits against Meta, bringing the total number of authorities taking action against the Menlo Park, California-based company to 42. Cooperation on critical minerals and bolstering infrastructure for the Pacific Islands will be on the agenda as Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese begins a 4-day visit to the US. He received a lavish welcome at the White House as US President Joe Biden looks to strengthen the relationship with Australia as part of his strategy to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. DD India's Kate Fisher has more from Washington, D.C.
As the Biden administration is increasingly caught up in dealing with conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, the Australian leader's state visit will refocus its foreign policy back to the Indo-Pacific and its long-term interest in countering the rise of China. This state visit will include Prime Minister Albanese's 9th meeting with President Joe Biden in the past 16 months, showing just how important the relationship is for the US. For Australia, making progress on the AUKUS submarine deal will be a priority. The trilateral accord with the UK would give Australia access to nuclear-powered submarines for the first time, and it's widely seen as a counter to China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. But the pact faces hurdles in the US Congress, with Prime Minister Albanese saying that he'll meet US lawmakers every day that he's in Washington to highlight the need for progress. He also told reporters that he's focused on extending Australia's security alliance with the US into an economic and technology partnership as well. They will discuss a critical minerals task force to boost private investment in Australia's rare earths industry and to reduce global reliance on China. They'll also discuss infrastructure projects for the Pacific Islands. But Ukraine and the Middle East will also be on the agenda, of course, with the US president keen to show that he can manage the crises at hand while also furthering the US's long-term foreign policy objectives. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
And staying in the US Republicans have selected Mike Johnson as their next Speaker nominee in a secret ballot vote on Tuesday. Republican Tom Emmer dropped out of the race just hours after he was selected as the latest GOP nominee. Mike is the 4th nominee put forward after 3 others failed to win enough support from colleagues and the 2nd nominee of the day. Johnson was selected after 3 rounds of voting. The House has been without a Speaker and has been unable to pass bills since Kevin McCarthy was ousted on the 3rd of this month. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen testified as a key witness in New York Attorney General Letitia James's civil fraud case against Trump. Cohen accepted that he manipulated the values of the former U.S. president's real estate properties on Tuesday. He added that Trump tasked him and other executives with doctoring financial statements to boost the value of the company's holdings and secure better real estate premiums. The testimony came during the fourth week of a trial in New York State Court in Manhattan. Meanwhile, Trump, the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, has denied any wrongdoing. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu inspected command posts of Russian troops in Ukraine's Donetsk region, as per the Russian Defense Ministry during a working visit close to the war's front line. He told the assembled servicemen that their efforts were giving Ukrainian forces fewer and fewer opportunities. Ukraine in June undertook a counter-offensive, capturing villages in the east and south, but at a much slower pace than its rapid advance through the northeast a year ago. Ukraine says Russian forces in recent days have been pounding the eastern city of Avdiivka, but have sustained heavy losses. And now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. China's Shenzhou 17 crew is set to conduct an extravehicular experimental maintenance of the Tiangong space station for the first time on Thursday. The spaceship carrying 3 crew members will be launched from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China for a 6-month mission. Bolivian firefighters and volunteers continue to battle the fires raging in a forest close to the Madidi National Park, a protected area in northwestern Bolivia that includes parts of the Bolivian Amazon. According to a government report, there are 16 active forest fires in 4 departments of Bolivia, with the La Paz region having the most significant affected areas. Indonesia's Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto and his running mate Gibran Rakabuming Raka, President Joko Widodo's son, officially submitted their candidacy for next year's presidential election. Thousands of supporters cheered for the candidates as they handed their credentials and manifesto to election officials in Jakarta's GBK Stadium. The election will be held on 14th February next year. South Korea plans to launch a nationwide vaccination campaign to contain an outbreak of lumpy skin disease in cattle after 29 cases have been reported since the first outbreak last week. Authorities are in talks with domestic and foreign companies to secure 4 million doses of vaccine by the end of this month. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The Netherlands takes on Australia in a Cricket World Cup match. And Afghanistan looks to script more history against Sri Lanka after stunning the cricketing world with victories over England and Pakistan.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to all the news from the world of sport with Deepika. Deepika, how is India's campaign at the Para-Asian Games coming along?
Good afternoon, Ramesh. It is going really well. India got its first ever medal in para-archery as well, and a lot more. So Indian athletes added a total number of 17 more medals to their tally till now at the ongoing Asian Para Games, which are taking place in China. So far, India has clinched a total number of 35 medals, including 10 gold, 12 silver and 13 bronze medals. In the men's discus throw, sweeping all 3 medals, Neeraj Yadav bagged gold, Yogesh Kathunia claimed silver and Mathuraja won bronze. Sharat Makhanhali Shankarappa clinched gold in men's 5,000 meter event by clocking 20 minutes and 18.9 seconds. He's beaten Nabil Khalid Ahmad of Jordan by just 0.01 second. On the other hand, Ankur Dhama bagged gold in men's 5,000 meter event. Now, in a series of social media posts, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi also lauded the performance of Indian medalists. India has sent a total contingent of 303 athletes who are participating across 17 different sporting disciplines at this edition of Asian Para Games. On to cricket now. Australia currently locking horns with the Netherlands in their 5th match of the ongoing ICC Men's Cricket World Cup tournament. Well, Australia won the toss and decided to bat first. Logan Van Beek picked big wicket for the Netherlands in the early overs as in-form Mitchell Marsh returned back to the pavilion. Till the last reports came in, Australia were at 68 for the loss of 1 wicket. Earlier, Quinton de Kock continued his sublime touch in the World Cup with his 3rd 100 of the tournament in just over 5 innings. The wicketkeeper batter smashed a brilliant 174 as South Africa piled up 382 for 5 against Bangladesh. De Kock knock saw him own the record of highest score for a designated wicketkeeper in World Cup's history, going past Adam Gilchrist's 149 in the 2007 finals against Sri Lanka. Now, the left-handed batter also became the first South African batter to score 3 centuries in a single World Cup. Well, Afghanistan has stunned the cricketing world with 2 stupendous victories, one over England and the second one over Pakistan in the World Cup edition. Now, these victories are undoubtedly going to herald a new era in the strife-torn country as Afghans look ahead to script more history on cricket pitches. DD India's Prateek Narayan Singh has a report. Take a look.
Afghanistan has turned out to be a giant slayer in the ongoing ICC World Cup. They trounced defending champion England by 69 runs, followed by their win over 1992 champion Pakistan by 8 wickets in the league matches. Their performance has been nothing short of miracle as they stamped their authority on the marquee tournament. When the tournament kicked off in early October, Afghans were considered not only underdogs but pushovers. The proposition was not unfounded as they had only defeated Scotland in 2015 edition of the tournament. Even in this edition, Afghanistan performance lacked bite in the beginning. They capitulated before Bangladesh and India in their first 2 matches. They were bowled out for 156 runs against Bangla Tigers, and Men in Blue chased their target of 272 with 15 overs to spare. But tables turned when they took on England, a formidable side and one of the contenders of the trophy. Afghanistan came into the match having lost 16 of their last 17 World Cup games. Put into bat, they posted 284 after a blistering knock of 80 from opener Rehmanullah Gurbaz and a half century from Ikram Alikhil. England were all out 215 in reply. Harry Brook was the only batter to score a fighting 66. Spinners Mujibur Rahman and Rashid Khan took 3 wickets each. Afghanistan coach Jonathan Trott was effusive in his praises of the players and said, "There's a lot of confidence that will hopefully come from this when competing against the bigger nations, and it'll have a knock-on effect on all the other games, not only in this World Cup but for the future as well." what Afghanistan cricket can achieve, hopefully this will be the sort of kickstart. Many thought victory over England was a fluke. The assumption was not off mark because Afghanistan was bundled out for paltry 139 against New Zealand, losing the match by 149 run. But then came battle against Pakistan. Afghanistan pulled off their second giant killing act with a remarkable 8-wicket victory against their neighbour. Afghanistan's top 3 batters smashed 50s. Skipper Hashmatullah Shahidi made an unbeaten 48 as they successfully chased a competitive 283-run target. The win was set by spinners. Afghanistan had 4 tweakers in their playing 11 and the gamble paid off. Rashid Khan, Mujibur Rahman, Muhammad Nabi and Noor Ahmed had a stranglehold on the proceedings. They picked up 4 for 176 from their combined 38 overs, while Pakistan's spinners Shadab Khan, Usama Mir and Iftikhar Ahmed conceded 131 runs without taking a wicket. No doubt, the landmark wins over England and Pakistan in the World Cup will cause a ripple effect in Afghan cricket and inspire future players. Also, there's high expectation from Afghanistan when they square off against Sri Lanka in next match. It will be interesting to see whether Afghanistan can make to the semi-final. Prateek Narayan Singh, DD India.
Moving on to soccer, in Champions League encounter, Harry Maguire and Andre Onana resurrected Champions League hope as the goalkeeper produced a stunning penalty save from Jordan Larson to preserve all 3 points after a towering header from the England centre-back. Now, Maguire's crashing header sent the Old Trafford wild after the stadium had paid tribute to Sir Bobby Charlton before kick-off. United were unable to give a performance that Charlton would have been proud of, but it turned out to be a night that could map out the revival of 2 off-criticized figures. So that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to Ramesh for other news and updates.
Thank you, Deepika. Now, after 10 days of festivities, it's the end of the Durga Puja when Hindus pay homage to goddess Durga. DD India's Stuart Smith went along to a celebration in London to see how the annual event was marked there. Take a look.
Insulated from the grey London October, Camden's Durga Puja is bursting with colour.
This time of the year is late autumn, and this is when we worship the goddess, the female force. She can be from divine to the demonic, but she's called Shakti, or the power.
It was in 2021 that UNESCO put the Durga Puja on its list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity, but it's been marked in London's borough of Camden for 60 years, the oldest one to take place outside of India.
A group of very enthusiastic Bengalis wanted to do a puja. Puja means worship. And they asked an editor of a very leading Bengali newspaper to give them a statue so that the statue could come and they could worship. And so the statue was sent by ship.
The festival is known as a time to mark a return to one's roots, and the smells, sounds and colours of home are a reminder for Hindus in London of their values and heritage.
It's very liberating that a 3,000-year-old religion keeps the mother goddess and a woman at the centre as a Shakti, as the whole divinity from where the mother goddess comes. It's very empowering for us Indian women, for us women who always feel that we are doing 100 things at the same time. We have a goddess here who's got 10 hands, who denotes exactly that, a woman doing every single thing under the sun and still being successful as a mother, as a homemaker, in careers, in everything that we do.
Well, primarily a chance to honour the goddess Durga. It's also a chance for the Indian community here in London to gather and meet, which is so important when so far away from home.
While the majority present are brought up in India and have moved to London, they're mindful of the next generation who may never have seen a Durga Puja in India at all.
Most importantly, our second generation, our kids, because we are away from India, we want to show our kids the rich culture that we have, how much respect we have for women in our culture, and we are allowed to do anything as a part of Hinduism. There is no rules, you see, and women can lead. So that diversity, that inclusiveness as a part of Hinduism, we want to show that, and we feel proud and make them feel proud as well.
For the 400,000 Londoners who identify as Hindu, the organisers say they feel privileged to bring the ancient goddess to modern life in Camden. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.